Hi, beautiful people. Um, for some of you, it's morning time, so I'll say good morning or good evening, whatever's good. I hope that y'all had an amazing day. JD Vance spoke at a machining facility in Plover, Wisconsin. I happen to be from Wisconsin. I wish I could have been there. I'm going to listen to it with you guys. Everything I share is for educational purposes, just for us to talk about. What's good, Chakra King Black? What's good? So the Republicans are going to come on strong right before midterm elections. They're going to lay it all out for you. But I'm going to watch this with you. And then we're going to talk about, as usual, let me. I'm kind of excited to hear this. I'm kind of excited to hear this. All right. All right. Let me get it for you. So, let me know, you guys, if the audio is okay. I'm going to try to be on screen with you tonight. Let's get to it. I think this is it. Okay.
To the stage, the 28th Administrator of the U.S. Small Business Administration.
Here we go.
Especially at a hardworking small business like Point Precision. I mean, this is just absolutely incredible. But let's be clear, the Trump administration knows that there's nothing small about small business. In fact, President Trump tells me all the time, Kelly, small business is big business. And it's true. Friends, this administration gets it. Both President Trump and Vice President Vance lived and worked in the real world. And that's why Main Street is coming back. Over the last year, the Trump administration and our partners in Congress, we have focused on one thing. That thing is putting America's families, workers, and small businesses first again. Now, it's about you. This is about you. You are the hardworking Americans who get the job done every single day. You're rebuilding our nation brick by brick. You endured 4 years of record high prices, and you overwhelmingly voted to send Donald J. Trump back to the White House.
That's right. I think you guys are going to like this.
Thank you for that.
Jerome, good morning, Jerome.
Thank you. President Trump, Vice President Vance, and their cabinet has worked tirelessly for you, with urgency, with resolve, and without apology to make America great again. So, we're reversing 4 long years of Bidenomics. It hurt you, your family, and Main Street. Now, did anyone watch the State of the Union on Tuesday? Oh,
yes,
of course. That was so good. President Trump made it very clear. We're bringing back the nation that we all knew, where freedom and grit, not the government, created generational opportunity. And the president said it best. The great betrayal is over, and hardworking Americans will never be forgotten again. You know, it's really a turnaround for the ages. For the next 250 years, together we're cleaning up massive wasteful spending, the fraud that sent your hard-earned dollars to Somalia, and Democrats' open borders that imported violent criminals into our communities. After 4 disastrous years, it took Republicans just 12 months to turn it around. We're reducing Biden's massive inflation and high interest rate to 5-year lows. We're cutting regulatory red tape. We restored drill, baby, drill, and clean, beautiful coal. And importantly, especially for great places like this, we're ending the globalist trade imbalance that sent your jobs overseas. We recently have become aware that Made in America is back because we are a nation of builders, and that's
right.
happening right here in Plover at Point Precision. Now, the mainstream media and the liberal elites said what Republicans did couldn't be done, that we simply had to accept managed decline and dependency. Well, they were dead wrong, because all we needed was a new president. Now, you've heard this. You know that the working family tax cuts means thousands of dollars back into the bank accounts and pockets of hardworking families. But we also know that every single Democrat voted no against your tax refund, against your tax cut. Despite that, Republicans got the job done for you. And here's what it means. You know what it means. No tax on tip, overtime, Social Security. It's expanded child tax credits. It's the $1,000 Trump accounts. It's the health savings accounts. The list goes on. And for small businesses like this one, it's making sure that tax rate is certain, the lower tax rate and accelerated depreciation so that they can invest more, hire, and grow right here in this local community. It's the most Main Street tax bill in American history. Now, every rational American understands that lower taxes are a good thing. But you saw it at the State of the Union. Congressional Democrats refused to stand or even applaud things like $4 trillion in tax cuts, voter ID, keeping boys out of girls' sports, and the basic principle that the security of American citizens should always come before criminal illegal aliens.
Right, they wouldn't stand for that.
So this is really a battle of common sense versus crazy. But let's be honest, Democrats owe hardworking Americans like all of you more than applause. They owe you an apology. They drove up inflation, opened the borders, wrapped America in red tape, and scammed our farmers and manufacturers with the Green New Deal garbage that cost us trillions of dollars. Now, President Trump, Vice President Vance, and congressional majority did not break it, but they are going to fix it.
Yeah.
They're fighting for you, not for big government, not for the Green New Deal radicals, or for fraudsters sending your tax dollars overseas, but for workers, for Main Street job creators, our veterans, and our families who make our nation great. Just like Team USA, who brought home the gold, President Trump, and yeah, let's hear it for Team USA. They brought home the gold. President Trump and Vice President Vance are bringing home the golden era. Now, none of this would have been possible without their decisive actions. And there is no one who believes in the American worker and in American industry more than our amazing Vice President, J.D. Vance. You all, yeah, let's hear it for J.D. We're excited. He's coming up.
They're hoping.
You all know the story of his humble beginnings, and now he's in the Oval Office as the second most powerful man in the world and probably the coolest vice president we've ever had. Now, most importantly, he's a man of deep faith, the father of four, with his beautiful wife and second lady, Usha Vance. He and President Trump do it all for hardworking Americans like you who make our nation exceptional. And that's why he's here today, back in Wisconsin, standing proudly with you to restore the American dream for generations to come. So please join me in welcoming the 50th and the greatest Vice President in American history, J.D. Vance.
He's the coolest. He's the coolest, right? Yeah. Oh, the music. Damn it. Oh, wow.
Let me say a few words of gratitude before we get started today, because I'm so grateful to be back in this great state with all of its amazing people. You all know this, Wisconsin is a state with a proud tradition of building great American products with Wisconsin hands, and that's what we're here to celebrate today in this great facility.
Damn it, what's good, damn it, I see you.
Now, that would not be possible, of course, without the workers and the leadership of Point Precision. And I've been learning a little bit about this facility just because I knew I was going to come here today. 165 great Wisconsin employees making great American products at a good wage. This is a place that rewards dignified work, and this is a place that makes America and the whole community richer. So you guys should be proud of yourselves. I want to thank the family, Joe and Cindy, and their beautiful kids, and all. It looks like we got some grandkids here, Joe and Cindy. That's amazing. Life's greatest blessing, of course. So great to have you guys. Great to see you guys. Wait, what is today? Thursday? Should you all be in school right now? I caught you. But this is a good excuse, right? The Vice President of the United States comes to town, so you ought to get a get out of school for the day card. But I want to thank a couple of other people here because all the things that I'm going to talk about, all the things we've been doing in the Trump administration would have been impossible without a couple of great congressional allies. And so in particular, I want to call out Representative Derek Van Orden. My dear friend Derek, it's hard to miss him. Thank you. I got to tell you, sometimes in Washington, you get to Washington, there are people you can trust, there are people you can't trust. Derek is one of those guys you can trust to always fight for the people who are in this room. He knows exactly where he came from, a proud veteran. And Derek was talking with me backstage. He's like, we got to do a little video together just so we can get it out there for the congressional campaign. And I said, okay, absolutely. What do you need me to say? And he said, well, just say that, we fought alongside each other in Vietnam. I said, Derek, if we were Democrats, we could get away with that, but I don't think that's going to fly. We're Republicans. These media reporters are not going to let us get away with that. But there are so many great things about Derek, but all of the amazing things. No taxes on tips, that happened because of Derek. No taxes on overtime, that happened because of Derek. No taxes on Social Security, that happened because of Derek. So if you are a citizen in this district and you see a big tax refund check come next month or the month after that, whenever you file your taxes, remember it was Derek Van Orden who made it happen, and it was congressional Democrats who tried to stop it. So we're going to send Derek Van Orden back to Washington. Yes. We've also got President Trump's endorsed candidate for governor of Wisconsin, Tom Tiffany. Tom, please stand up and be recognized. Another great guy. Another guy without whom we could not have accomplished all the great things that we did in Washington, D.C. Now he wants to come back home and serve as governor. Are we going to make Tom Tiffany the next governor of Wisconsin? There we go. And then finally, if I'd had a few people stand up, I want to recognize Representative Grothman. Where's Representative Grothman? Thank you, sir. It's good to see you. Where's Representative Brian Stile? Brian, a great guy. We're not in Brian's district, but a great guy. We've got Wisconsin GOP Chairman Brian Schimming. Where's Brian Schimming? Thank you. State Treasurer John Lieber. Where's John Lieber? Thank you, man. Thank you for your service. And finally, State Senate President Patrick Testin. Patrick, where are you? Thank you. Now, here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the stakes coming up in November because it feels like this election in November is very far away. But if anything, the State of the Union should have showed us that we cannot give power back to congressional Democrats. Now, I am fundamentally an optimist about this country. I believe most people, most human beings, most American citizens, whether they got a D next to their name or an R next to their name, or they have no political affiliation, they're good people. They love our country. They want our country to thrive and prosper. But I got to tell you, after the State of the Union, I'm not so sure that is true of the congressional Democrats that we saw at the State of the Union address. As the President of the United States said very well, you watch their reaction to some of what he was saying, and all I could think was, these people are kind of crazy. These congressional Democrats, if you think about all of the things that they were doing. And I got to tell you, of course, I've got the best seat in the House in many ways, right? I'm sitting right next to the Speaker of the House. I'm sitting right behind the President of the United States. And I've got one internal monologue going on, one thought in my head the whole time, which is don't make a stupid face for 2 hours, which is hard for me when you're on TV for 2 hours and the Democrats are doing crazy things. So I'll give you a little lay of the land. So to the left, my left, is all of the Republicans, okay, because I'm sitting right behind the president. And to my right is some Republicans, but mostly the Democrats. And so I see the reaction of all the congressional Democrats, and it's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. So you say, like, for example, you had this beautiful little girl had such a sweet moment with her dad. You may have remembered. She was probably 6 years old. She had been assaulted by an illegal immigrant. She had had a very bad, I think, medical prognosis, but it turned out that she was okay. This 6-year-old girl hurt by a human being who never should have been in this country in the first place, who was led into this country by Joe Biden and the Democrats, and she's hugging her dad, and she's so excited, and you can tell, and I think everybody's heart feels very, you get that warm and fuzzy feeling, and then I look over the congressional Democrats, and they're just scowling. They cannot clap their hands for a 6-year-old who survived an attack from an illegal alien. What is that? What kind of a person can't stand up and cheer for an innocent young girl who's doing well, who's showing the entire country strength and resilience? And then the president had this line. I'm not going to get it exactly right, but he said, if you believe, stand up and cheer if you believe that the American government's first priority should be to look after American citizens instead of illegal aliens. And all the Republicans, including Derek and everybody else, stands up and starts cheering. And then you look over the Democrats. Complete silence, no reaction at all. The one thing that got at least some of the Democrats to stand up and cheer was the Olympic hockey team, which we're, of course, very proud of. But you got to ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen, what is it about a political party that cannot stand up and cheer for a 6-year-old girl who survived an attack? What is it about a political party that can't stand up and cheer for the fact that we have rising wages and low inflation for the first time in a very long time in the United States of America? What is it about a political movement that sees the mother of a woman who was murdered on a bus? Because the president highlighted this woman, her 22-year-old daughter was riding on a bus to work, was killed by a violent criminal who was let out of jail 13 times by Democrat leadership, should have never been on our streets, and then murdered an innocent girl. We recognized her mother, her strength and her character and her grief. And I think we all kind of grieve with her a little bit. And the Democrats cannot even stand up and cheer for that. And so the question of the next election is not, do we want low taxes? And of course we do. It's not, do we want a secure border? And of course we do. It's a more fundamental question than that. Do we want to give power back to the people who opened our border, who raised your taxes, who won't even cheer for a 6-year-old girl who was wounded because of their bad policies? And I think our answer to that is hell no. We want to give power back to the people like Derek Van Orden who fight for us. And here's the thing, it's funny. I talk to the president multiple times a day. It's kind of the job of vice president. You talk to the president a lot. And every single day, the president will say to me, what have we done today? Got to do more, got to do more, got to do more, okay? The president has such an intense work pace. And I sometimes think, Mr. President, we got to take stock of all the incredible things that we have accomplished over the last year. When Joe Biden and the Democrats left us, the government of this country, we had the highest inflation that we had ever had in 40 years. Thanks to Donald Trump and congressional Republicans, we now have inflation at 2.4%, the lowest in 5 years, and it's coming even lower, ladies and gentlemen. Under Joe Biden and the Democrats, the average American lost $3,000 in take-home pay. And under Donald Trump and Republicans, in just 1 year, the average American has seen $1,700 increase in take-home pay. That is more money in your pocket, and that's what we're here to do, is make you guys more prosperous. Under Joe Biden in the Green New Scam, we had the highest energy prices that we had had maybe in my entire lifetime. And then we had Republicans take over with a simple principle, which is drill, baby, drill. Get the oil and the gas out of our territory. Use American workers to provide American companies the energy that they need. And now we've got gas prices lower. We've got electricity and utility bills lower. And we've got companies just like Point Precision that can actually afford the cost of doing business, which they couldn't do when Joe Biden was in charge. So it's funny to me, when the Democrats talk about affordability, you heard the president talk about this in the State of the Union address. Hearing the Democrats talk about affordability is like hearing an arsonist complain about fire. It's your fault. You guys left us a country with sky-high inflation. You all left us a country where we were going everywhere but America for energy. You left us a United States of America where the average family was $3,000 poorer. So our attitude is, you know what? When you talk about affordability, you're exactly right. You caused an affordability problem, congressional Democrats, and we are here to fix it. Now, I want to say a few more things, then I'll take some questions from the reporters. So one of the things that I love about what the president has done is he is trying to cut out the fraud and corruption in the federal government. I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it is very, very rampant. We have way too many people who got way too comfortable getting rich off of your tax dollars instead of providing the services that they need or maybe giving you a tax cut. We had fraudsters getting rich off of your generosity. I did a little press conference yesterday with Dr. Oz, who runs our Medicare and Medicaid services. And beforehand, we were talking about some of the fraud that he had uncovered in just a couple of months. Let me give you an example. In next door Minnesota, in Minneapolis, not a very well-governed state, you had a situation where we have a service that the federal government provides. The states actually provide it, and then they get reimbursement from the federal government. And you know what they do? They help autistic kids with after-school services. Because if you know anybody who has autism or is on the spectrum, sometimes you need a little bit of extra help. And so we've got a program there to help those special needs kids to make it easier for their families. What was happening is that Somali fraudsters, many of whom were illegal immigrants, shouldn't have been in this country to begin with. You had Somali fraudsters who were saying that their kids were autistic even though they weren't. They were collecting a fat check from all of you, and they were getting rich from it. So what happens? You get poorer, your tax dollars go to Somali fraudsters, and worst of all, you've got special needs kids in American communities that we ought to be helping, and instead of helping them, we're helping fraudsters who don't have the problem to begin with. That is a scandal, and it's something that Joe Biden and congressional Democrats promoted with their open border, encouraged it, and funded it. Now, I'm here to tell you that the job of your government is not to open your borders and allow fraudsters to come in and take advantage of you. The job of your government is to shut the border and shut off the fraud, and that's exactly what we're doing in the Trump administration. But you know, it's actually not just the people on the ground who are committing some of this fraud. Some of the worst corruption is the corruption that you see in the federal government. And I know Derek and a lot of these other guys were standing up cheering for this. Why don't we stop allowing congressmen and congresswomen to get rich off of insider trading? Is that common sense? So again, I've got a seat unlike any other. And the President of the United States, first of all, the whole time the president's given his speech, I was amazed at his self-control, because I would not have had it if I was up there with the microphone, because these two women, far-left Democrats, Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, they're sitting next to each other, and they're talking loudly the entire time, okay? So there's a point at which I almost look over at him and go like this. But see, this is the thing you can't do. when you're sitting behind the president. I would have gotten in trouble for that. Even Derek wouldn't have defended me if I did that. But it's just nails on the chalkboard. They're talking, they're interrupting. The president was completely unfazed by it. But again, you're sitting there, and then the president gets to the point where he says, you know what? We are going to stop congressmen and congresswomen from getting rich off of insider trading, from violating the public trust that you have put in them and get rich off of insider trading. Of course, a lot of people stand up and cheer. Most of the Democrats don't. You know who was not standing up and cheering? Nancy Pelosi. I have never seen a person more angry in my life than Nancy Pelosi when the president of the United States is calling out insider trading. Ladies and gentlemen, my hope for all of you, of course, is that we can make you richer and more prosperous and safer in your communities. But my hope for all of you is that you find somebody who loves you as much as Nancy Pelosi loves insider trading, because then you will have a very good life indeed. But on all these things, we just have to stop the fraud. The government exists to serve you. We want the government, of course, to be smaller. We want it to be limited in its scope. We don't want it in your pocketbooks. We don't want it telling you what to do. But there are a few things you need the federal government to do. You need it to provide for the common defense. We need a good military. You know, we need it to ensure that people like special needs kids are able to get the essential services that they need and can't afford. I happen to believe I grew up in a poor family. When we have people who are down on their luck, we don't want those people to starve or not be able to get medical care. We want to make sure that Americans are taking care of Americans. But that is not possible if we allow fraudsters to come into our country and get rich off of your generosity of spirit. And so I want you, when you go to the polls in November, I don't want you to just think about all the great things that we've accomplished, all the great things that we've talked about. I don't want you just to think about no taxes on tips and lower gas prices. I want you to think, who is going to protect my money from fraudsters? And the simple answer is, it's Derek Van Orden and congressional Republicans. It is not the Democrats who created this problem to begin with. Now, I got so many notes here. I could sit here and go on for another 45 minutes. Housing prices are down. Apartment rents are down 4 months in a row. We came in saying we wanted to make housing more affordable, and we're starting to make good progress on that. The annual cost of a new mortgage in just a year is down by $5,000. And my friends, if we could get Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates because the inflation is now low, then those mortgage costs would come down even further. I happen to believe, and I know the President of the United States does, that when young people look at their country, one of the best things that we can do for our young families is make it possible for them to afford a home again and raise a family in a piece of land that they themselves own. I happen to believe that we do not want our young people to be permanent renters in the society that was built by their parents and grandparents. We are going to fight for our young families to own a home, and that's exactly what we've been doing for the past year. Let's keep on doing it. But let me just close with this one final thought, and then I'll take some questions from the media. There are a lot of specific issues that matter. We could talk about all of them. We could talk about the fact that we've got a closed border and they opened it. We could talk about the fact that we've got the lowest murder rates in the United States of America in 100 years. And you wonder, how did that happen so quickly? 2 reasons. Number one, we empowered our great law enforcement officers to do their job, and the last administration was holding back. And 2, we got a lot of violent criminals the hell out of this country and send them back to where they belong. That's how you get a low murder rate. We got so many things we could brag on, so many things that we still got to do. We still got to work to make homeownership affordable for our young families. You know, you've probably seen the headlines about, you know, the stock market has been doing incredibly well because the economy's been doing incredibly well. But the president asked me probably 4 months ago, he said, what about the Americans who don't own stocks? And so he's created a new program where we can allow the 35% of Americans that don't own stocks to open up the kind of accounts like a 401k that some workers have access to, other workers don't. We're going to allow every worker to open up that kind of account. So when the stock market goes up, it's good for every single American citizens, not just the 60, 65% of people who own stocks. We want to make it good for everybody. So there's still so much more that we can do. But the fundamental question, I don't think, is this issue or that issue. The fundamental question is, who fights for you? And what I saw at the State of the Union, when I saw all those Democrats sitting on their hands, even when we're celebrating, little girls who survived a terrible attack, it hit me that these Democrats, most of them, they don't serve you. Now ask yourself, why are they sitting on their hands? I would like to think, I don't know them personally, maybe Derek would disagree with me, but I'm going to be a little charitable to those congressional Democrats. And I think when that little girl was standing up, hugging and kissing her dad, that those Democrats, there was at least a part of them, the human part in their soul, that wanted to stand up and cheer for that little girl. And all of them sat on their hands. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? And the answer is because they know they don't answer to you. They answer to somebody else. They answer to people who have corrupted this country. They answer to people who opened the border. They answer to people who got rich off of illegal immigrant labor. We want you guys to get rich off of the labor of American citizens. We want American workers to get rich for working hard, not illegal aliens. And that, to me, is the fundamental difference between congressional leadership and congressional Democrats and the congressional Republicans under the leadership of this president. These guys, they don't serve you. Watch a speech of any of the congressional Democrats. Go watch if you can handle it. Maybe have a few good Wisconsin beers beforehand and prepare yourself. But watch a speech when these guys talk about illegal immigration, and then watch a speech when they talk about manufacturing jobs for American workers. That doesn't give them passion. That gives Donald Trump passion. That gives Derek Van Orden passion. The idea that every single one of you should have a good job, a good life if you work hard and play by the rules. The idea that our young families should be able to own a stake in their country, that's what fires us up. That's what we're fighting for in government. But you watch these congressional Democrats, what really fires them up, they get really mad at the idea that we're deporting illegal immigrants. They talk about the dreams of illegal immigrants who have come into our country, but what about the dreams of you and your children? Because that's who I'm fighting for. That's who Donald Trump is fighting for, and that's who Derek Van Orden is fighting for. I'm not going to tell you, and I know there are a lot of people who are going to watch clips of this or even watching it live right now. I'm not going to tell you you're going to agree with us, agree with me on every single issue. That'd be impossible. Even in the Republican Congress, which is just, 220 or so very good guys, you've got disagreements of opinion. You've got some people who will say this thing about this issue and something else about another issue. Disagreement is fine, but I'm not asking you to agree with us on everything. I'm asking you to remember who serves you. And what I know about Donald Trump and the congressional Republicans is that we wake up every single day and we think about, how do we fight for you? The question in November is, do we give power to the people who fight for corruption, who fight for fraud, who fight for illegal aliens, or do we give the government to the American citizens for whom it was designed and for whom it was created? I think I know the answer. Let's vote for our people. Let's vote for Derek Van Orden next November. Thank you all. Thank you, guys. Thank you all. Okay. Thank you. Please have a seat. And what we'll do is we'll answer a few questions from the media. And I would ask that the local reporters get first dibs here, and then we'll answer as many questions as we've got time for. So go ahead.
Alex Loroff with Spectrum News 1. Mr. Vice President, there was a poll released yesterday of Wisconsin voters where 70% of respondents said their biggest concerns right now are affordability and the cost of living.
Sure.
What can still be done at the federal level to ease some of those affordability concerns that Wisconsinites still have?
Well, look, it's our top concern, too. We want people to be able to afford a good life. Nothing breaks my heart more than the idea that you've got somebody who goes out, they bust their rear end, they come home, they want to give their kids a nice meal. Maybe once or twice a year, they want to take their kids on a nice vacation. We want people to be able to afford that so long as they work hard and play by the rules. And I think the thing that we've tried to remind ourselves of in the Trump administration is we were put in a very big hole. When you talk about the average American family under Biden's leadership that lost $3,000 of take-home pay, we think every single day, how do we get that $3,000 back and then some? You heard me say earlier, and this is a true statistic, that the average American family has gained about $1,400 under the Trump administration just in about a year and a month. Now, that's something we're very proud of, but we think every single day that still means that compared to when Biden took over, those Americans are still running behind. They're still catching up. So I think what we have to do every single day is come up with ideas for how to make the American people's lives better. And that's what we're doing. Some of this is the policies that we've already put in place take a little bit of time to work their way through the system. Some of it is we got to keep on working at it. You know, a few months ago, the President of the United States had the big pharmaceutical companies into the Oval Office. And normally what happens is these big pharmaceutical companies, they come to Washington, thanks to the fraud and corruption, and they get a big fat paycheck from congressional Democrats. You know what they got instead? They got a lecture from the President of the United States. Why is it that the people in this room, for my entire life and then some, paid the highest prescription drug prices in the world, while people in England or France or other rich countries paid much lower prices? And the reason is because the pharmaceutical companies took advantage of us. That was corrupt. It was unacceptable. Now, you're already starting to see this with certain medications, and you're going to see it with more. But the President of the United States said, we are done paying more than Europe for prescription drugs. We want to pay what they pay. And if you're not going to take that deal, then get the hell out of my office. Well, they took that deal. So we got to keep working at it. But I'd say to Wisconsin voters, whether they're conservative or liberal or in the middle, I'd say to them, ask yourselves what kind of a hole the Joe Biden era put us in. And do you want to give power back to the people who created those problems? Or do you want to double down on the administration that has busted our tails for the last year to fix those problems? Let's double down on the leadership that's fixing the problems, not the leadership that created them.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Matt Smith from WISN TV in Milwaukee. On the fraud efforts and what we saw in Minnesota yesterday, here in Wisconsin, the governor has refused to give over the SNAP data here in the state, along with the voter data. I'm curious, is there a point, or at what point would the administration withhold federal funds from Wisconsin?
Well, look, we're going to look at every option that we have because we've got to stop this terrible fraud, but that is absurd. Ask yourself a question. Why would the government of Wisconsin not want to help us kick fraud off of the welfare rolls and kick fraud off of the voter rolls? And the only answer I can possibly come up with is because they like to cheat. There's no other real explanation. Now, the governor might say, in fact, I'm sure the governor would say this. Let me just be charitable to those who disagree with us. The governor would say, well, there isn't as much fraud as the Trump administration believes there is. Well, even if that's true, and it's not, but even if that's true, let's get what fraud there is off the voter rolls and off the welfare rolls. You know the right number of people who should be illegally voting in American elections? 0. You know the number of people who should be fraudulently collecting food stamps? 0. I want those benefits to exist for the people who need them. The only way to promise that is to get the fraud out of the system, and that's what we're trying to do in the Trump administration. No more fraud, no more corruption. It shouldn't be hard.
You would think everybody wanted that. You would think.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Ellie Davis, Local 5 News. What should data centers do to be good community partners?
Well, that's a very, very good question. And you saw the president talk about this in the State of the Union address. Look, there's a good news and a bad news with data centers. Now, the good news is, first of all, they're big facilities. You create a lot of construction jobs. And this next generation of the technological revolution, you need those data centers to make that run. Those data centers are like the gasoline of the technology revolution that we're going to see over the next 75 years. And I don't know about you all, but I want America to win that technology revolution. I don't want China or some other country to win it. And so that's why we got to have these things. Now, here's the downside. If those centers are built and the local governments aren't ensuring that there's enough power for those data centers, then it's going to increase electricity costs for everybody else. And so what we think the data centers have got to do is they've got to work with the local governments, with the state governments, and in the federal government, we are trying to do everything that we can so that if you build a data center, for example, you can just build a power plant right next door. What I think we ought to be working towards is you build those data centers and electricity costs come down for American citizens instead of going up for American citizens. The data centers can afford it. We got to make sure that they're good neighbors so that when they come in and build these great buildings, the people in their neighborhood, the people in their community benefit too, and that's through lower power. That's the best way they can be good neighbors. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Laura Schulte. I'm a reporter with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. And in Wisconsin, rural hospitals are struggling. Closures are creating healthcare deserts for parts of the state. And what can be done federally to keep those hospitals open and providing necessary care to community members?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. It's a very, very serious problem. And unfortunately, this, like so much of else, what's going on in our country right now, is a problem that we inherited from the last administration. If you look at the number of rural hospital closures that were happening in 2022 and 2023 and 2024, it was really accelerating. And it's one of the reasons why it's not a provision that's talked about as much, but if you look in the big, beautiful bill, the working families tax cut, however you're calling it, in that legislation, there is a multi-billion-dollar rural hospital fund to try to help these rural hospitals persevere in tough times, stay open, provide essential services, and get them to a place where they're on firmer financial footing. Nothing like that, I don't believe, Derek, had ever existed in the federal government before. But we said, look, we cannot let these rural hospitals just disappear. So we've created this fund to try to, support the ones that can stay open and try to slow the closures for the ones that are going to have to close. We think that we're starting to see some good evidence from those. It takes a little bit of time for that tens of billions of dollars to work its way through the system. But that's the number one thing. And then the number two thing is the Trump administration did a number of things in the first term, and we're trying to do this in the second term to give patients more choice. Because what we often do in our healthcare system, like for example, if you're a veteran, under the Biden administration, we would force veterans to drive an hour and a half away to a big city hospital when they could maybe go to a telehealth appointment in their own home, or maybe drive 15 minutes down the road to the local doctor. So we've tried to empower people to have more choice, because if they have more choice, they're going to be able to stay in their communities, which means more money going to those rural healthcare organizations. And that's the way that we save rural healthcare too. It's a tough problem. I'm not going to pretend it's easy, but we are working as hard as we can to make sure that the people in our rural communities still have access to great healthcare. Thank you.
I'm Stephanie Hoff with the Midwest Farm Report Radio Network, talking to farmers across the state of Wisconsin. My question for you today is, commodity markets have not been friendly to Wisconsin farmers. I'm talking corn, soybeans, and dairy. What is the administration doing to bolster trade, increase export markets, and those relationships to bring market prices back up?
Yeah, so the good news on that is that our great Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke, has been on this from the very beginning. I think it was maybe the first cabinet meeting where Brooke comes up to me and says, JD, the farmers have inherited a mess, and we've got to do everything that we can to ensure that they can stay afloat during this very tough time. So one of the things that we're doing is making sure that wherever commodity prices are, that our farmers can do their job, they can provide their food, and if they fall on tough times, there's a little bit of a support mechanism there. Now, you might say, why do we do that? But the answer is actually very simple. If we don't have American sovereignty in our food supply, we don't have sovereignty at all. If you cannot depend on your neighbors to provide your food, if the food that you're relying on comes from another country, say goodbye to sovereignty, because that country is the one that controls you. The country that controls the food is the country that will ultimately control the entire world. So we've made very strong efforts, and we're going to keep on working at this with our farmers to ensure that whatever commodity prices are, they're able to stay afloat, they're able to grow their products. We know that they're struggling, and we're trying hard to fix that. The other thing the president has done is, for a very long time, China, one of the biggest buyers of soybeans, they would take advantage of American markets, but they would not take the product of Wisconsin farmers, whether it's corn or soybean or whatever it is. They would not offload that product into their country. Now, that was a fundamental unfairness, and that's why the president is fighting back and making sure that we have fair trade practices. If you don't have countries honoring the United States of America, our great farmers and our great manufacturers, if you have countries that are able to come in and undercut the wages of our workers, but we're not able to export their product, ladies and gentlemen, that is not trade, that is international fraud, and that's what's been happening far too long all over the world. The President of the United States is stopping it. We're going to keep on stopping it to the benefit, not just of Wisconsin farmers, but Wisconsin manufacturers too. So let's say we'll take 2 more questions here. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Dylan Eckhart, 9 News, out of Wausau, WAOW. Nationally, there has been bipartisan legislation introduced sticking with agriculture. For example, the Domestic Organic Investment Act, which would make a USDA's development grant permanent, allowing for grants for farmers and businesses. How will the administration continue to work with local farmers and businesses in Wisconsin, especially central Wisconsin, to expand on some of those ideas and introduce legislation?
Well, you heard a little bit of my answer in the last question, but you're right. There's a lot of legislation that's working through the Congress, and as broken as Congress is as an institution sometimes, there are still some good pieces of bipartisan legislation that happen. Luckily, I think agriculture is one of those areas where you still have some good bipartisan piece of legislation. You ask how we're going to work with local farmers, especially in central Wisconsin, and the answer is just to listen. You know, we've got a great legislative team at the White House, but we've also got a lot of great allies like Derek Van Orden in Congress. And what these guys are doing is they're coming to us with ideas. And they're saying, look, we heard from our constituents, this is something we've got to do. You know, whatever the product is, you know, sometimes they're most concerned about commodity prices. They're worried that the soybeans and the corn, it's way too low. Sometimes they're worried, of course, about inputs. They're worried about fertilizer. They're worried about the cost of fuel. So what we just try to do is work with our allies in Congress. And frankly, we'll work with anybody in Congress who has good ideas about how to help our farmers. We're going to have some good legislation on this front over the next year. It's just a question of getting it over the hill, getting it to the president's signature, or to the president's desk, I should say, for his signature. Thank you. One more question.
Thank you, Vice President. Derek Schritz, Newswatch 12, and Ryan Lander. Wanted to ask about the healthcare worker shortages in several hospitals. Hospitals in Wisconsin are experiencing or are worried about the aging demographic shift. And I'm wondering what the administration will do to bolster the healthcare workforce in the coming years.
Yeah, a couple things that we see is one, you know, we're encouraging hospitals and all healthcare providers, and we're seeing some evidence of this, to use technology to your advantage, right? So if you've got, let's say, a guy who needs to see a doctor, but he can see that doctor from the comfort of his own home, doing a telehealth appointment. You know, sometimes you got to go into the doctor. Sometimes you can actually do that by just talking to the doctor at home. That we're trying to encourage because that puts less stress on some of the healthcare workers. If you can just see somebody quickly, it's in and out. You don't have to deal with all the paperwork of coming in for a doctor's visit. That's one of the ways that you relieve that stress and shortage that we see in our healthcare workforce. The other thing is that we're investing a lot to try to make sure that we meet the doctor, the nurse, the physician assistant shortage. The basic problem that we had in our country is that for a long time, we would encourage people to get like women's studies degrees in the United States of America, which, you know, maybe you need a few of those. I'm not sure how much, but what you really need is doctors. You need nurses. You need people who can work with their hands. You need people who can work on a farm. You need people who build and make things and take care of people. And our education system just really underinvested in training the next generation of healthcare workers. That's not a problem that's going to be solved overnight, but it is something we're working to solve because we want, I mean, you know, I see kids in the audience. I'm sure everybody has a young person who wants to be a healthcare worker, knows somebody in your family or your friendship circle that wants to work in healthcare. We got to make it easier for our young people to choose those careers. Unfortunately, for a very long time, we've actually made it harder for people to go into the healthcare field. We layer up those who do with debt, and we make it harder for them to join the workforce. We're trying to make it easier for people to enter the healthcare field. And in doing that, that's how you release the long-term shortage. So that's all I have. I appreciate everybody who asked a question. I'm sorry if you didn't get time to ask a question, but let me just leave you with this one final thought. So I've got 3 little kids at home, and I've got one on the way. I've got an 8-year-old, I've got a 6-year-old, I've got a 4-year-old, and Usha is pregnant with baby number 4, which we're very happy about, very proud of. Thank you. But my 8-year-old, he's gotten really into football in the last probably 3 or 4 months. Don't hold it against him. He's an Ohio State fan. That's his dad rubbing off on him. Are we Wisconsin fans here in central Wisconsin? Okay. But here's the thing. We watched over the past few days. We watched Rudy. Does everybody remember the movie Rudy, about this guy? He was too little. He wasn't fast enough. He was 5'6", but he worked his tail end off, and he made the Notre Dame football team at really the height of Notre Dame's power. I mean, they were one of the best. They still are, but they really were one of the best football programs back in the country. And it really is just this incredible tale of a guy who believed in his dreams, who fought for those dreams, and would never give up. A classic American tale. But I was watching that movie, and I realized the 3 most important people in that movie, obviously one is Rudy, the guy who became the football player. But number 2 is Rudy's dad. And number 3 is the priest. There's a priest in the movie who sort of serves as a spiritual counselor to Rudy. And it kind of hit me watching this movie that the American dream takes many shapes and sizes. I think all of us know that. Even among our own kids, our grandkids, our friends and family, you've got the striver. You've got the guy like Rudy who's got really big dreams, wants to play football for Notre Dame, and is going to make those big dreams happen. But you've also got a guy like Rudy's dad, a guy who just wanted to work a good job, who wanted dignified work, who wanted to raise his family and take a nice vacation every now and then. And then you had this priest who was kind of the glue that held everything together, that helped people when they were struggling, that provided counsel to people when they were down on their luck, and was empowered to be a leader in the community. And I realized watching this that when we talk about the American dream, I'm not talking about my American dream. I'm talking about your American dream. Whether you want to have a good job and raise a healthy, happy family, whether your kid wants to go off and play college football, whether you want to start a business like the one that we're standing in, whatever it is, the great thing about this country is that the American dream comes in many shapes and sizes. But here's the thing about the American dream. The government cannot give it to you for you. But the government, with bad policy and bad leadership, it can destroy that American dream, whatever shape it takes in the lives of you and your children. And so I just want you to know that I'll never forget where I came from. Raised in a poor family, raised by a grandmother who would sometimes struggle to pay her prescription drugs or put food on the table and had to pick one or the other. And here I am before you, the greatest crowd in the world, as the vice president of the greatest country in the world. This country is still a place of very big dreams. But I'm not going to pretend that my dream is your dream. And I just want you to know that every single day I go to work, and every single day Donald J. Trump goes to work, and we fight for the American dream for you and your family, however you define it. We would really appreciate you not sending us a bunch of crazy Democrats in November. So please don't do that. God bless you all. Thank you.
That's funny. He does such a good daggone job. All right, you guys. That was kind of funny. What did you guys think about that? Did you like it? I think. Wait, what's this?
Nice to see you.
What is this video playing?
Great weekend. And we, as you know, we made our deal with the European Union.
What? Just
The Japan deal is done. Many of the other deals are done. Indonesia was a very big deal, big country actually.
wait,
And they're wonderful.
This one just
Hopefully
came by.
wonderful for
Let me see
both sides. But it's literally trillions of dollars ultimately being brought into
Thank you,
our
True.
country.
Appreciate you.
And it was something that had to be done, and it is being done, and it's being done properly.
Let me look this
We're
up.
now negotiating with various other countries, and the rest we're just sending out the bill to. We send a bill, we send a letter saying that you'll pay a certain tariff.
Ronald,
Obviously,
that's
most of
true.
them because you have, as you know, hundreds of countries, a lot of countries out there. So we look at the deficit or we look at the surplus. and we look at the country and how the country.
Okay, I have seen this one. This video caught me a little by surprise, but I love hearing from Donald Trump. So it is what it is.
He's treated us, and lots of other things go into the equation. And we make a decision as to what that tariff will be. And it's pretty standard letter from that point on. And I want to tell you, this is something to me, it's a VA bill signing. And it's very important to me and to
Right, Lord?
many of the people in this room. So I'm thrilled to sign the VA Home Loan Program Reform Act into law. And that is something that they've wanted to do for a long time. This legislation provides desperately needed relief to veterans and their families who have fallen behind on their mortgages, of which there are a lot, because we have somebody that doesn't want to lower interest rates and probably won't lower them today. It's a really sort of an amazing situation. And it helps keep our promise to end veterans' homelessness. And we're going to do that for America. We're going to do that for our great veterans. I'm thrilled to be joined by the bill's sponsor, Congressman Derek Van Orden. Where's Derek? Derek? Hello, Derek. I didn't see you back there.
Well, I'm Navy SEAL.
Let's see. And Mike, how are you, Mike?
Let's see how much you know about
These two gentlemen are
mercy.
terrific.
JD is cool,
They are,
Jerome.
working together, and they've been working together, Mike, a long time on this. So I just want to thank you both, and I'll ask you to say a couple of words. An estimated 61,000 American veterans are in danger of losing their homes, as you know. But thanks to this bill, the Department of Veterans Affairs will be empowered to pay loan holders the necessary amount to prevent foreclosures on our veterans, so our veterans won't be foreclosed and put out onto the streets. It's very important. This bill also creates a 5-year partial claim program that could benefit up to 3.7 million veterans. That's the kind of numbers you're talking about. It's big stuff. The costs of the program are fully offset and will add nothing at all to debt. This common sense legislation had overwhelming support and passed unanimously in the House and the Senate. Wow. When was the last time that happened? That's pretty impressive. My administration is committed to doing everything possible to ensure that our veterans are treated with respect and treated as well as anybody in this country. They're so important. They're so great. They've suffered so much, in many cases. In May, I signed an executive order to open the National Center for Warrior Independence in Los Angeles, California, which will house up to 6,000 homeless veterans. You know, until we came along, they treated the veterans far worse than the illegal immigrants. They came in and were staying in hotels, luxury hotels, and the veterans are staying outside of the sidewalk on the same hotel. Some pictures are just incredible. In addition, we'll also be opening a full-service VA center in New Hampshire, which is the only state in the union to not have a VA center. And I made that promise to the people of New Hampshire a long while ago, and we got it done. It's the only state that doesn't have, and yet you have a lot of veterans in New Hampshire. We're slashing the wait times at VA medical centers, and we're bringing back VA choice and VA accountability, which I had and the Democrats abandoned. Made it so much better. Accountability, meaning if you treat our veterans badly, we treat you badly. You get fired and beyond that. And VA choice is you can get out and you can, if you don't have a doctor ready, willing, and able to take care of you within the VA, you go outside, you go see a doctor, you get better, and we pay the bill. And the veterans loved it. We had a 92% approval rating. And what did the Democrats do? They came along and they ended both of them, and they hired back many of the people that we fired. We fired people and replaced them with great, loving people. But we fired people who were sadists. In many cases, they were sick. They were thieves. They were stealing. And they hired them back. The accountability, meaning the VA accountability, it was a big deal getting it passed because you have unions, you have all sorts of problems to go through. We got it through everything. And the Democrats, as soon as they got back, they hired many of the worst people right back, and we're getting rid of them. But I want to thank the two gentlemen standing behind me, and I'd like to ask you just to say a couple of words, and then we'll take a few questions if you'd like, and we'll sign the bill. and our veterans will be very happy about it. Thank you. Mike, do you want to start?
Sure. Well, first off, thank you, Mr. President, for signing this bill today. Let me tell you that not only this bill, which will help make sure that those veterans have got themselves in a situation where maybe they would be foreclosed on, it gives them just a little bit extra help without the government going into a banking business like what we had with the previous administration. I also want to say thank you too, though, for appointing Doug Collins as our secretary for the VA. As chairman of the VA, having the opportunity to work with Doug, one, because we worked together before, but he has the right attitude. And the attitude is the VA is not about bureaucracy. It's about the veterans. And we want to keep it that way. That doesn't mean we don't have a good workforce. What it means is that workforce is focused on the veterans, not on making sure that the VA grows, but making sure that the VA does the job it's supposed to do. And thank you, Mr. President, it's your leadership that allows that to happen.
Thank you, everybody, for coming here today. Thank you, Mr. President, for hosting us here. I'm the longest serving enlisted member of the United States military to ever get elected to Congress in the history of our nation. And I'm unequivocally stating right now that President Donald J. Trump is the most positive pro-veteran president in the history of this country. And so he backs up his words with deeds. And this is another example of how President Trump is taking care of our veterans. So, sir, I'm very thankful for you, for your leadership. And let's get this thing done and get our veterans into homes. So God bless you, and God bless the United States.
Thank you. Let's sign first, and we'll take a couple of questions. Yes. And get it done. I've been waiting a long time. And I do want to commend Doug Collins because I hear he's doing
a fantastic job.
He's done an incredible job. Okay. Is that a good one?
That's a good one.
No photo pen? It's a very important bill. And we want to thank everybody for the great help, and in particular, you two guys have done a fantastic job. Thank you very much. Okay, take a pen. Take a pen. Take another pen. And we'll take them and give them to the other people to help. Very well. Okay, questions?
Mr. President, you said that higher interest rates are making it harder for veterans to refinance. There was a stronger than expected GDP report this morning. What do you say to analysts who worry that lowering interest rates would actually lead to inflation?
Well, if that happens, then we just raise them. What you do is you lower them, and let's see if there's inflation. Right now, there's no inflation. Everybody thought there would be. All we have is billions of dollars of cash pouring into our country from other countries that took advantage of us for many, many years. You know, they were taken advantage of. We were like the stupid people that didn't know what they were doing. They took advantage of us. Other countries, friend and foe. And by the way, the friend was oftentimes much worse than the foe when it comes to trade. So if that happens, what you do is you raise your rates and you do what you have to do to stop inflation. But we're keeping the rates high, and it's hurting people from buying houses, and we don't want that. If for any reason that happened in a year or two, if there's some signs of inflation coming back, right now there's not. We have a great thing going. I think we're going to have the richest economy you've ever seen. We have money coming in that we've never even thought about at numbers that nobody's ever seen before. We have a deal with Japan where they're going to pay us $550 billion. We have a deal with Europe where they're doing $750 billion, $400 billion plus $300 billion. And many other countries, it's likewise, you know, relatively, those are two big ones, but likewise. So we have a lot of money coming in, and we have no inflation, and we're very strong, and we should be lowering the rates. You know, each point that this gentleman keeps up costs us $365 billion a year. Think of that. 1 point, $365 billion. If you bring it down a point, we save 365. We should be the lowest interest rate, and we're not. We're 38, number 38, because of the Fed. It's all because of the Fed. He's done a bad job. Now he's got a meeting today, but I call him too late. You know, he's always too late. Even if he does it today, probably won't. I hear they're going to do it in September. not today. For what reason? Nobody knows. But Europe, as you know, cut their rates 11 times in the last short period of time. But the good news is we're doing better than anybody anywhere in the world. Nobody's doing anything even close to us, even with the higher rates. The higher rates do affect housing, though, because people can't go out and get a loan or refinance their house. And it would be nice to have them be able to do that. That would be just another check of a box. That would be very important. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, you mentioned today that India, in addition to its 25% tariff rate, would pay an additional penalty because of its support of Russia. What is that additional penalty? And are other countries facing the same threat?
Well, we're negotiating right now, and it's also BRICS. You know, they have BRICS, which is basically a group of countries that are anti the United States, and India is a member of that, if you can believe it. It's an attack on the dollar, and we're not going to let anybody attack the dollar. So it's partially BRICS, and it's partially the trade, this trade situation. It's the deficit. We had a tremendous deficit. So, as you know, Prime Minister Modi is a friend of mine, but they don't do very much business in terms of business with us. They sell a lot to us, but we don't buy from them. You know why? Because the tariff is so high. They have one of the highest tariffs in the world. Now they're willing to cut it very substantially, but we'll see what happens. We're talking to India now. We'll see what happens. It doesn't matter too much whether we have a deal or whether we charge them a certain tariff, but you'll know at the end of this week. August 1st is a very big day for this country because money is going to pour into the United States like we've never seen before. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Hawley introduced legislation that would ban members of Congress from owning or trading individual stocks. It extends to the president and the vice president. Are you in favor of that legislation?
Well, I like it conceptually. I don't know about it, but I like it conceptually. And, you know, Nancy Pelosi became rich by having inside information. She made a fortune with her husband, and I think that's disgraceful. So in that sense, I'd like it, but I'd have to really see I study these things very carefully, and this just happened. So I'll take a look at it. But conceptually, I like it. And what I do think is Nancy Pelosi should be investigated because she has the highest return of anybody practically in the history of Wall Street, save a few. How did that happen? It happened by she knows exactly what's going to happen, what's going to be announced. She buys stock, and then the stock goes up after the announcement's made. And she ought to be investigated.
Mr. President, Harvard is reportedly willing to settle with you for $500 million. Is that enough?
Well, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. We're negotiating with Harvard now. They would like to settle, so we'll see what happens.
Mr. President, what is America's debt to our Afghan war allies that kept our veterans safe over there? There's been some talk about sending a lot of them back.
No, we know the good ones and we know the ones that maybe aren't so good. You know, some came over that aren't so good. And we're going to take care of those people. The ones that did a job, the ones that were told certain things. A shame what happened. One of the most disgraceful episodes in the history of our country. The way we left Afghanistan was just a disgrace. But I understand your question fully, and we'll take care of 90% of your question. Okay, I know what you mean. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, are you still open to negotiate with India on the tariff front?
Well, we're talking to them now. We'll see what happens. Again, India was the highest or just about the highest tariff nation in the world. And one of the highest, 100 points, 150 points or percentages. So India was one of the highest in the world. They had won 175%, and higher than that. You know, there's another higher one is Canada. They've been charging our farmers 200%, 300%, 400% for years, and nobody did anything about it. But India is one of the highest. So we're going to see. We're negotiating with India right now.
Cash Patel reportedly found burn bags of Russiagate materials, and we'd love to get your thoughts on that.
He said what?
Burn bags of Russiagate materials.
I don't know that. I don't know what you mean by that statement. Say it.
Bags full of Russiagate
A
documents.
burn bag. I thought you said appointed a man named Burn Bag. Go ahead. You got to speak up.
Thousands of documents in these bags, supposedly burn bags of the FBI in the secret room.
Well, I want everything to be shown. as long as it's fair and reasonable, I think it will be shown and it should be shown. And I think he feels that way, and I think Pam feels that way. But it's got to be, it's got to be stuff that really doesn't hurt people unfairly, because you have so many people involved. And if they can do that in a fair way, I think it's great. I think it's really great. The whole thing is a scam. It's a scam set up by the Democrats, and they love talking about it. But I would like to see people exposed that might be bad, and we'll see how that all works out. But it's getting to be very old news. If they had anything, they would have done it the week before the election, because they were losing by a lot. If they had anything, they would have done it. They controlled the file. The Democrats controlled it. Comey and all this, sleazebags, every one of them that you read about all the time. And I guess they've got some problems now having to do with yet a different scandal, very big one. But they control that file. So I would think that if they would have had something in the file, they would have released it about a week before the election, maybe 2 weeks, right, Brian? Go ahead.
Mr. President, welcome home, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you.
It was a great trip. It was an amazing trip.
Look good.
For the country, for me, it was okay, but for the country, it was an amazing trip. Go ahead.
It was. Many parents are preparing to send their kids back to school in a few weeks. Now, this will be the first time they've gone back to school under the second administration for you. Now, the previous administration labeled a lot of parents domestic terrorists for showing up at school board meetings. What's your message to parents now as they return their kids to school, knowing that they have the support of you?
Well, the beautiful thing is, as you know, we've gotten rid of the woke. Woke is gone. I think pretty well buried. We're going to make sure it's buried. But the parents are now taking over the school boards. They're getting rid of these people that probably didn't like the children very much based on what they were doing. And it's a big difference. And, one of the other things, and I keep watching these talking points that the Democrats have, they say, oh, prices are up. No, prices are way down. Fuel is down. Groceries are down. Things like eggs are way down. When I came in my first week, the eggs had gone up like 4 or 5 times. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. And they were hitting me about eggs. I said, I just got here. It was one of my first maybe my first news conference. And we have eggs down now to a point where they were actually lower than even before. So I just want everyone to know prices are way down. And that's a big thing. Groceries, everything. If you look at fuel, $2.35 a gallon, a lot of that. But we actually had 4 states where it's down $1.99, $1.99, as opposed to $3.50, $4. And it went up a lot higher than that. They got rid of my policy, and then it went through the roof. And then they brought my policy back, but it was too late. They blew it. We had the highest inflation in the history of our country. And now we have no inflation. We have nothing but cash coming in. The world respects us again. We're a really great, proud country. And I say it, I'll say it again. Many, many leaders of other countries, I'm dealing with a lot of them today on their tariff situation. They owe us a lot of money. But many countries said to me, and almost in the same words, you were a dead country 1 year ago, and today you're the hottest country anywhere in the world. We are the hottest country right now anywhere in the world, and that's why we're taking care of our veterans. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody.
Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me? Are we still friends? Donald Trump touched on a lot. Okay, they talked about the Epstein files. Speaking of the Epstein files, you guys, let me update you guys really quickly on what's happening. We know that Hillary Clinton, we know what's going on with Hillary Clinton. I'm going to play a small clip, and then I'll give you the latest update on the Epstein files. Your discretion is advised. It gets dark, but it's what's happening in our country. Now, J.D. Vance, I'm going to say this before I switch gears, would make an amazing president for 2028. Do you hear him speak? There is no way you can't feel how it just feels good to be an American right now, okay? And the Trump administration brought that back. Republicans are doomed. Oh, mercy. That's why I don't read on the comments. I'm praying for our country. Now, there is no way to not touch on these Epstein files, you guys. There's no way. Donald Trump said something. If he did anything wrong in those files that could have gotten him thrown in jail, they would have brought that out during the Biden administration. When Donald Trump was trying to run, they would have brought that out so fast. but there's nothing there. There's nothing there. I'm going on mute. Let's watch. Let's watch. But it does get dark. I'm not going to hold you. I'm not going to hold you. Let's do this one first. This one's easier to watch. This one's easier. Hang on. Give me a second. I got you. Why did I shrink like that? Let me know if you guys can hear it okay.
About this member asked any questions about Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell to anyone else they have deposed. And in fact, the Republican members didn't even show up for the deposition of Les Wexner. And when I said that, I had to
Thank you, Lawrence.
Point out that the only questions that any Republican member asked of any of the people they deposed was of former Attorney General Bill Barr when Chairman Comer asked him about the allegations, in his view, about Russia's involvement in my election in 2016. So at the very end of this hearing, after I made that point, I want to commend Chairman Comer for raising a series of significant questions that I responded to about the nature of the investigation and the areas that I thought should be explored. So I appreciated that. I want to see the truth come out. So that was a reassuring way to end a very long, repetitive deposition.
Madam Secretary, you spoke in your opening remarks about how heartbroken you have been for the Epstein survivors as these files have come out. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you have processed and reacted to the fact that the former president, your husband, Bill Clinton, is referenced in the Epstein files numerous times, including in some photos featuring women? And how have you been personally preparing for the deposition that is coming tomorrow? Are you 100% confident that there isn't anything that the former president knows about Epstein's crime?
I am, and I think the chronology of the connection that he had with Epstein ended several years before anything about Epstein's criminal activities came to light, and that he was charged and sadly given a sweetheart deal, which, as I said in my statement, had that not happened, perhaps his predatory behavior could have been stopped earlier. But I think it is fair to say that the vast majority of people who had contact with him before his criminal pleas in 2008 were like most people. They did not know what he was doing. And I think that that is exactly what my husband will testify to tomorrow.
Madam Secretary, can I ask? Madam Secretary, do you believe this was a fair hearing? And do you still want to testify publicly, even though you gave this deposition?
Oh, I'm not going to do it again. They had a chance to do it in public, and I wish they had done it in public. And I think they're making the wrong decision, avoiding doing it in public. I thought it was very repetitive. I thought that they asked literally the same questions over and over again, which didn't seem to me to be very productive. And then, as I said, toward the end, there were other questions that were totally off subject. So if they are going to fulfill their responsibilities to literally investigate the investigations, which is what they originally said was the scope of their work, I think they could have spent the day more productively.
Madam Secretary, can I ask?
James Matthews from Sky News. Can I ask why was Ghislaine Maxwell invited to your daughter Chelsea Clinton's wedding in 2010? She'd already been mentioned in a civil lawsuit by Virginia Giuffre before that. Jeffrey Epstein had already been convicted before.
She came as the plus one, the guest of someone who was invited.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
What message does it say that
I don't know when the video will be out. I don't know when the transcript will be out. We've asked that they be out as quickly as possible, and then you can see everything. Thank you.
All right, important question so everyone can see for themselves.
So, you guys, do you believe her? What do you guys think? Okay, I'm gonna take you guys through the latest right now. And then we can talk about it before I get out of here. She looks good. I didn't think she looked good. I think she sounds like a liar. How do you not remember something so big? And I think she does a good job at deflecting and lying. And I find it interesting that a lot of the Democrats like to excuse whatever happens on the left just because, even if something is blatantly in your face. But it's not against the Democrats. Okay, I have no problems with the Democrats. I'm just saying, I find it strange. It's not a Republican versus, okay, wait, I'm looking for something. Here we go. It's not a Republican versus Democrat thing. It's a right and wrong thing. And some people just refuse to believe it's right in front of their faces. Let me get you through this clip.
About accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein's secret storage lockers. We've talked about this before, but now we're talking pornography, lab results, sex slave manuals, and by the way, the most chilling of all, it is reported these storage units were never searched by authorities. We may now have an idea about all this material that was stored in at least one unit, and I will tell you, it is disturbing. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. By the way, I got to ask, if you're into content creation, if you're putting things out on social media, have you ever wanted Sidebar to get a free week and then 50% off? So earlier this week, we covered a report by The Telegraph that Jeffrey evidence that was reportedly never fully recovered. And we have just learned new information about what one of those storage units may have contained. And this adds just another disturbing dimension to this entire saga. And according to the outlet, this is such a big part, it appears the FBI may have never searched them. So as we talk about, should there be further investigations? Is there evidence against anybody else? Just something to think about, right? Now, according to DOJ documents and reporting from the New York Post, Epstein had paid private investigators to remove items from his Palm Beach, Florida property, including multiple computers, films, pornographic material. And by the way, the timing is key. This was allegedly to hide all of this ahead of a 2005 police raid. Remember, around this time is when he was being investigated after the family of a teenager, a 14-year-old girl, reported that she was molested at his home. 2008, he ends up pleading guilty to solicitation of prostitution and solicitation of prostitution of a minor. This is that sweetheart deal where he avoids the federal charges. By the way, I have to say, if these allegations are true, it raises serious questions of potential liability. Hiding potential evidence where there's a pending criminal case, an active investigation. But now we have to talk about the storage locker. So the items were then reportedly kept at a nearby Palm Beach storage facility. And now an inventory reportedly shows what Epstein seemingly wanted hidden, maybe from authorities, at his Palm Beach property. And this is, again, as he was being investigated on child sex crimes over 20 years ago. And by the way, some of those items detectives reportedly had found receipts for during the raid, but never actually recovered them. So I want to be clear about something. The Telegraph had first reported on the Palm Beach storage locker inventory, but we found the actual document in the Epstein files from an October 2009 email that was sent to Epstein's lawyer, Roy Black, from a member of the private investigation agency that he hired. William Riley is the key member there. And this was roughly 3 months after Epstein was released from that 13-month prison sentence for solicitation charges. But I want to go through this together, okay? And I'm going to warn you right now, some of this is unsettling, to say the least. Okay. Here's how the email begins. On October 7, 2005, investigator Paul Lavery visited the residence of Jeff Epstein and, pursuant to the instructions of attorney Roy Black, removed items of potential evidentiary value from his home. These items were subsequently turned over to investigator William Riley for inventory and safekeeping purposes. By the way, before you even get into the items that were removed, according to the Telegraph, it seems authorities had known that Epstein may have done this because the outlet refers to a 2010 deposition from a civil case that was filed against Epstein by a Jane Doe. We found this transcript in the Epstein files. Here's how this questioning went. So Epstein's asked, prior to the Palm Beach police executing a search warrant on your house in October of 2005, did you direct redacted to remove at least 3 computers from your home? Mr. Pike, form. Jeffrey Epstein answers, though I would like to answer all your questions, Mr. Edwards, my attorneys, at least today, have advised me I must assert my rights under the 6th, 5th, and 14th Amendment. Due process, right against self-incrimination. Question, where are those computers today? Mr. Pike, form, answer, though I would like to answer all your questions, my attorneys have advised me I must assert my rights under the 6th, 5th, and 14th Amendment. Question, isn't it true that within that computer system were the names and telephone numbers of hundreds of underage minor females that you sexually molested? And of course, Epstein says the same kind of response. So I want to go back to the email and see what was apparently inside that storage facility. The items removed from Epstein's house were 3 different computers, including 2 Dells and 1 HP Pavilion. Okay, now before we move on, it is worth noting that copies of 2 of the computer hard drives were apparently recovered by the FBI years later, but again, remains unknown if any of the material in that storage unit was ever found by authorities or if they ever raided it. Moving on, over 2 dozen telephone directories. 1 metal HS 8mm tape with notations, including some photos, floor exercises, 2 jokes, dancing, shower, lingerie, and goodbye. Now, I got to know, hours of footage from the Epstein tapes have been released by the DOJ. You're talking lengthy periods of pornography, alleged victims taking videos in sexual positions, even children. But this specific tape may very well have been missing. I mean, in the files is a redacted email that says the following. Highly responsive material breakdown. Over 1 million images and videos were extracted from Epstein's devices. Approximately 34,000 were marked responsive. Approximately 15 to 20 images of CSAM, child sexual abuse material, less than 1%. Approximately 90% of the files are adult pornography, adult erotica, aged difficult pornography and erotica. In and of itself, it would be pretty disgusting, but you're talking about Jeffrey Epstein, so it takes on kind of a different meaning. I want to move on. 3 printed pages titled Individual Directory Listing, Massage, Florida. Okay. We know that massage work has been a common theme throughout Epstein's allegations, right? Court records show that Epstein maintained dedicated massage rooms in multiple residences, spaces that prosecutors say were used in the facilitation of child sex crimes. So the idea of having a masseuse directory, not surprising, very uneasy. Let's continue the inventory. Various different photographs, including 1 black and white photograph on white female lying nude wicker couch, 1 color photograph of white female standing nude in bedroom, 3 color photographs of 2 white females nude in the shower.
I told you guys this stuff is hard to listen to, so I understand if you can't, but this was the latest development that I could find. All right. And I just thought it was good to show it while Hillary Clinton is doing her testimony.
1 black and white photograph of partially nude white female with happy birthday written on it. 1 black and white photograph of partially nude white female. 1 black and white photograph of partially nude white female. 1 black and white photograph of white female. 1 color photograph of partially nude white female. 1 black and white photograph of white female written on back. Jeffrey, it's redacted. You better never forget about me. May 28th, we'll be traveling. Love, heart always, class of 2005. Now, we're going to get to the magazine shortly, but throughout our Epstein Files coverage at Sidebar, We have seen a trove of emails between Jeffrey Epstein and redacted individuals where there are sexual pictures that were asked to be sent, okay? And there is a large portion of those photos that were either partially or fully redacted to protect the victims here. But you have to wonder if he ended up printing these pictures out, maybe storing them at these storage facilities. I don't know. I mean, just to give you an idea about this, we did a whole sidebar on the collection of some really gross Jeffrey Epstein emails, including this one. This is from Epstein 2015. It says, now that I understand, try to take some nude photos, be open, brave, sexy, wild, dance, jump, have fun, live. The response back, okay, I asked my friend, so she will take some sexy photos tonight or tomorrow. You got this response from Jeffrey Epstein. I think that you should take some of yourself first. Now, I want you to be free with yourself. First, I think you should study English, go online. There are many classes. Then take the TOEFL test. The photos should not be porn, but should be sexy. Do you watch porn? Redacted, for example. You want to be free without being porn, but laugh, have fun. You're going to be 22, not 14 years old. Just to put that into context for you. Keep going through this. Magazines, including Purely 18, year 2000. Only 18, Barely Legal, Hustlers, January 2000. Now look, these in and of themselves are not illegal to own, assuming the women are at least 18 years of age, though the one titled Barely Legal is obviously eyebrow raising at the very least. One book titled Complete Slave, Creating and Living an Erotic, Dominant, Submissive Lifestyle. One book titled Training with Miss Abernathy, a workbook for erotic slaves and their owners. Annual Guide to NYC Erotica, Sexy New York City 2000. 11 different boxes, including labels of sex toys. By the way, when I was thinking of that one, I was thinking, is there any, hate to say it, forensic material that could have been found on those sex toys, right? If you're talking about a sexual abuse case. Now, there is such a thing as dominant and submissive dynamics when it comes to different sexual role playing, of course, and it can be a consensual act. But remember, Epstein was jailed twice. He had the sex charges, once in the early 2000s, as I mentioned, the solicitation charges in Florida. And then he was arrested in 2019. He was in jail awaiting trial on federal charges of sex trafficking of minors and conspiracy. So seeing he allegedly had 2 books on erotic slavery and domination in and of itself is disturbing, but you can also play into the idea of sex trafficking, right? As the theme around erotic slavery includes limitations on one's autonomy, freedom of movement, power to decide matters related to their own sexual activity. Is it elite? Maybe, but I got to call it out. And by the way, I got to call this out too. We did a previous episode of Sidebar about these communications that raised this theory that Epstein was growing toxic plants, that these toxic plants contained scopolamine. It's tied to memory loss, confusion, which would arguably limit one's autonomy, their free will. Let's continue on. VHS tapes, including 30 VHS tapes of pornography, empty DVD of pornography, South Park Volume 5, South Park Volume 4, The Witches of Eastwick, 1/22/99 main house video. Don't know why that specific date, but it's weird. Rush Hour, Madonna, The Trackers, Raging Bull, Beyond Rangoon, Not So Great Moments in Sports. Now, I mentioned earlier that the Epstein tapes released by the DOJ included long segments of pornography. Several of the websites seen in these videos contain the word teen, which, again, you have to question if these porn sites were even legal. But again, we don't know exactly what was on these pornography tapes. But again, they were inventoried, they were taken out. I do want to take a closer look at some of the movies included here because their summaries kind of stand out to me. So I want to start with The Witches of Eastwick. Here's a summary from Rotten Tomatoes.
Take you guys through all of that. I know it's a lot. It's a lot. Do you now? I see you guys talking about Donald Trump. Donald Trump. You guys are gonna bring up Donald Trump no matter what. Let me go on mute for 1 second. I'll be right. I'm gonna show you what they talked about instead. How about that? To-
clarifying and putting emphasis on something that's very important, and it's something the secretary herself has said. Secretary Clinton never met Jeffrey Epstein. She never visited the island. She never flew on his
There you
plane.
go.
She also had no knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein's horrific
Clinton's
charges. So
just
zero knowledge of any wrongdoing. And you've also all heard that directly.
Here's what the Democrats were saying after Clinton's testimony.
From her. Secretary Clinton is also completely cooperating with the deposition and the committee and is answering questions in full faith and in good faith. What is not acceptable is oversight Republicans breaking their own committee rules that they established with the secretary and her team, which you've all reported and you've seen by releasing photos. Not acceptable, and it was gracious of the secretary and her team to continue the deposition. What we also want to say at this very moment is it's becoming more clear every single day is the questions continue to build around this DOJ and the White House and the focus of the majority. We want to understand right now where the missing FBI files are. These are files that accuse the President of the United States about serious accusations around sexual abuse. And the fact that they're not in the files and have been apparently either removed or discarded is incredibly concerning. And so we're calling on Attorney General Pam Bondi to immediately release those files. And lastly, I want to also add that this committee has now set a new precedent about talking to presidents and former presidents. And we're demanding immediately that we ask President Trump to testify in front of our committee and be deposed in front of oversight Republicans and Democrats. And that should happen immediately. He is the person that appears almost more than anyone else in the committee, and it needs to happen right now.
Mr. Chairman, do you
we're going to go.
Do you distinguish at all between president and a former president and a sitting president? I mean, is there something in there because they will say, "Wait a minute, we know."
I think. Look, I think
what the court ruled on his immunity.
We should depose the person that is mentioned in the Epstein files almost more than any other person next to Ghislaine Maxwell, and that's Donald Trump.
Thank you. Thank you. House Republicans need to get serious about this investigation. I understand now fully why Secretary Clinton wanted to make this deposition and her hearing public, because the reality is we are talking to the wrong person today. Who we should be talking to instead are people who are actually mentioned in the files, people who have made misleading statements about their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Earlier today, Chairman Comer mentioned being open to talking to Secretary Lutnick. Well, let's get him in. Let's talk to Secretary Lutnick instead. Let's talk to someone who is neighbors with Jeffrey Epstein, who actually associated with Jeffrey Epstein, not someone who had never, ever met Jeffrey Epstein to their knowledge. And so let's try to talk about people who will help us with our investigation. And let's release the 2.5 million files so we can know who else to talk to. And so we can do right by the victims and actually bring justice. Thank you.
I am extremely appalled by the Republican chairman's behavior today and by the behavior of the entire committee and how unserious they are about this investigation. Let's remind the country about what we are actually talking about. Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and a list of many rich and powerful people from around the United States and around the world abused and raped more than 1,000 people who were children, many of whom were children at the time. And today we are sitting through an incredibly unserious clown show of a deposition where members of Congress and the Republican Party are more concerned about getting their photo op of Secretary Clinton than actually getting to the truth and holding anyone accountable. I also want to talk about the reporting from this week and the fact that we now know that the Department of Justice, in their ongoing cover up, the most egregious cover up in American history, intentionally seem to have redacted more or withheld more than 50 pages of allegations from a minor against President Trump. Do not forget that Kash Patel went in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee and said under oath that the FBI had no credible allegations of any other people being involved in this child sex trafficking operation. These documents that the Department of Justice intentionally has withheld from the American public in regard to the allegations against President Trump came from the FBI. The FBI had interviewed this witness 4 times. You do not do that if it is not serious. So Kash Patel needs to be immediately brought back before the Oversight Committee. He needs to answer these questions again, and we need answers immediately. Again, America is watching. Young people in this country are watching to see if powerful people will continue to protect other powerful people and whether or not Congress will actually hold these perpetrators accountable. Thank you.
And as a former prosecutor, I've been involved in leading investigations in serious offenses, and this ain't it. What we're seeing is political theater. What we're seeing is folks that are looking for headlines and tweets as opposed to doing the business of going about getting justice for the victims in this case and survivors in this case, I should say, as well. And I think that that's what I think some of our friends on the other side are losing sight of, is that we are here to make certain that justice is served, and it's important for us and as oversight members to do our job to ensure that all the evidence, any information is heard, and that any victims, any survivors, voices are heard as well. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. And so what we're seeing today is we have not learned one new thing. The secretary is here. She is more than happy to have all of you come in there and into this deposition and hear her out. But there are those on the other side of the aisle who do not want that for whatever reason. And so we're going to continue to push for justice. We're going to continue to work to make certain that the victims and survivors are given their due and their voices are heard and that justice is ultimately served.
The Trump administration's treatment of the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes has been a callous disregard. We've seen that in his refusal to release the files. We saw that this week at the State of the Union with his refusal to acknowledge the survivors who were in the chamber. One of the things that's been confirmed today is that in addition to having no relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, Secretary Clinton has no relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell. But there are important questions we should be asking the Trump administration about Ghislaine Maxwell. And I hope that our Republican colleagues will join us in asking these questions. Why is it that Donald Trump has refused to rule out the pardon, the clemency that Ghislaine Maxwell is campaigning for? We held a deposition in this committee with Ghislaine Maxwell. She used that deposition as an opportunity to campaign for a pardon. Chairman Comer then walked out before many of you and gave her talking points as to why she should get a pardon. Donald Trump needs to direct Attorney General Bondi to release all the files, to unredact the illegal redactions, and he needs to unequivocally rule out a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell, who is a monster convicted of child sex trafficking. Why has he not ruled out pardoning her? Why did the Deputy Attorney General spend hours with her? And then why was she transferred to a cushy, lower security prison? Those are important questions we should be asking about Ghislaine Maxwell. We no longer have to ask whether there's any relationship between Secretary Clinton and Ghislaine Maxwell. There was not.
We want to make a very clear demand right now, which is that the full transcript, unedited, of the Secretary's questions and the answers need to be released by the majority in the next 24 hours. We need The public and the American people have a right to know exactly what she said, what questions were asked of her, and how she responded. That's transparency. She herself requested that the press and the public be allowed into the deposition. That was denied. And so, at a very minimum, they need to immediately release the full transcript. And we're hopeful that tomorrow, for the former president, that the press would be allowed in and the public as well. That's been the request.
Thank you, Mr. Ranking Member. How did that leaked photo get out, and do you believe there should be any repercussions?
Well, the repercussions should come from the majority and from Chairman Comer. I mean, it was very clear that leaked photo was sent out by a member. I think it's not hard to figure out what member that was by looking at the photo. And the fact it was not just one photo, it was one photo and then a second post that also included a photo as well. And so that was completely against the rules. I think we're grateful that the secretary continued the deposition, but not acceptable.
The secretary's been clear that she has no relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. She's never met Jeffrey Epstein. She said a few times that she has had encounters with Ghislaine Maxwell. She clarified what those meetings were like. Did she talk about Ghislaine Maxwell attending her daughter's wedding? Did you get any new insight into those interactions?
I think obviously we can't get into specifics about the answers, but we will get all those as soon as the video is released. And so we have to be very careful about giving specifics about what was actually said in the deposition per committee rules. So which is why we're demanding right now that James Comer and the Republicans release the full transcript where all of the questions that were asked will be fully answered by Secretary Clinton. What I can say is that she, again, never met Jeffrey Epstein, never went to the island, never went to the plane, and had no knowledge of any of his crimes. This is completely unacceptable.
Howard Lutnick, when Comer went in, he said it's a possibility. When I asked him if Lutnick would be subpoenaed, Mason said she had an email printed out that she wanted to ask Clinton about. What was that line of questioning like in the room? And was there any discussion about moving forward on a request or a subpoena for Lutnick?
We've made the request of Howard Lutnick. It is unacceptable that we have the Commerce Secretary who has lied and lied and lied about his relationships with Jeffrey Epstein, the fact that he went to the island, he went on the plane, he went into business with Jeffrey Epstein, and yet sat there in a chair with the reporter and lied to the American people. He should resign today. He should be removed from office, and at minimum should come before the committee. I think everyone's been clear that we need to hear from Howard Lutnick.
But what was that in the room? The questioning in the room.
I'm not. I want all of the secretary's responses to be released immediately, or I want the press to be allowed in to get details on that.
Can you give us a sense of what it was like in the room? Is this a very tense deposition? And also, can you give a little bit more color of what exactly happened when this moment on social media is shared? Was there back and forth about letting the press inside the room?
So yeah, what I can say is obviously everybody was very taken aback by the committee rules being essentially not enforced and certainly just broken immediately. That is not acceptable, especially when the secretary said from day one that she wanted the press in the room. When the incident happened, I think this is something that can be reported. The secretary's team continued to demand, even after the incident, to let the press into the room, because what was important for her is that her answers to the questions not be edited, that the video not be edited. And so we understand that, and we're committed to getting this video transcript out immediately.
She is answering every question.
To be clear, she's answering all the questions. To be clear, she's answering all the questions. I think I can safely say that she's not taking the fifth.
Mr. Garcia,
Last question.
in terms of her understanding of her husband's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, is that something that she's been asked about?
I want the full transcripts to be released immediately. And I think everything that she said in her testimony will be clear. Thank you all very much.
It's a shame that it took 7 months to get Ms. Clinton in. She answered most of our questions. I'm going to let some of my colleagues lament on that, but we're going to not release too many details of what happened today. We're going to try to get the video out as quickly as possible, hopefully within the next 24 hours. That's a very long deposition. So as quick as we can get that video produced, we will get that out. The transcript will be released as soon as her attorneys approve it. That's the standard rules of a deposition. And I think that I think this was a productive deposition today. I think we learned a lot. There were a lot of questions that we asked that we weren't satisfied with the answers that we got, but we will continue to move forward. Any of my colleagues, every member of the committee asked questions, and
I would just say one of the things I learned today is if you really have specific questions about the Clinton Global Initiative or the relationship between the Clintons and Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, you got to ask Bill Clinton.
And that's a great point. The number of times that she said, "I don't know, you'll have to ask my husband," was more than a dozen. And I'll put it like that.
Chairman,
Go ahead.
Secretary Clinton said in her opening statement, if Republicans were serious about investigating Jeffrey Epstein, that you would call President Trump to testify.
Mhm.
Why won't you?
Well, President Trump has answered hundreds, if not thousands, of questions from you all about Epstein. And I think he's been very transparent in releasing the documents. We expect hopefully more documents to come in. We're still assessing the 3 million plus documents that we have. We obviously will be moving on to the next phase and bringing more people in for questions. So again, remember, this was a bipartisan subpoena by members of both parties to bring in Miss Clinton. And it's just a shame that it took 7 months. And I know every member of our committee has a big list of names they want to bring in. These are big, powerful people that hire very skilled law firms, and they delay. And part of when you delay in this investigation, it takes 7 months to bring a witness in like it did today. That creates a problem. So we're trying to move as quickly as we can. We're obviously following what's going on in the United Kingdom now. We're following, everything. I know that there are a lot of eyes, and hopefully the media will play a role in this. The media has a role. The documents have been made public. We're going to continue to fight for more redactions. There are some names who are redacted. I think we all agree shouldn't be redacted. I don't think they're who you think they are.
Well, I have just finished testifying. I answered every one of their questions as fully as I could, based on what I knew. And what I knew is what I said in my statement this morning. I never met Jeffrey Epstein, never had any connection or communication with him. I knew Ghislaine Maxwell casually as an acquaintance. But whatever they asked me, I did my very best to respond. It was disappointing that they refused to hold a public hearing, so I wouldn't have to be out here characterizing it for you. You could have seen it for yourself. We had asked for that. We think it would have been better for the committee and its efforts to gather whatever information they are seeking. We had a bit of a challenge in the beginning because we had agreed upon rules based on the fact it was going to be a closed hearing at their demand. And one of the members violated that rule, which was very upsetting because it suggested that they might violate other of our agreements. So we had to cease the hearing for a period of time until we could get assurances that no rules would be broken going forward. And we returned to answer questions repetitively, literally over and over again. I don't know how many times I had to say I did not know Jeffrey Epstein. I never went to his island. I never went to his homes. I never went to his offices. So it's on the record numerous times. It then got at the end quite unusual because I started being asked about UFOs and a series of questions about Pizzagate, one of the most vile, bogus conspiracy theories that was propagated on the internet, that was serving as the basis of a member's questions to me. So I can only say that the best exchange that I had came at the very end, when, contrary to every other deposition they have taken, no Republican member asked any questions about Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell to anyone else they have deposed. And in fact, the Republican members didn't even show up for the deposition of Les Wexner. And when I said that, I had to point out that the only questions that any Republican member asked of any of the people they deposed was of former Attorney General Bill Barr when Chairman Comer asked him about the allegations, in his view, about Russia's involvement in my election in 2016. Criminal activities came to light, and that he was charged and sadly given a sweetheart deal, which, as I said in my statement, had that not happened, perhaps his predatory behavior could have been stopped earlier. But I think it is fair to say that the vast majority of people who had contact with him before his criminal pleas in '08 were like most people. They did not know what he was doing. And I think that that is exactly what my husband will testify to tomorrow.
Do you believe this was a fair hearing? And do you still want to testify publicly, even though you gave this deposition?
Well, I'm not going to do it again. They had a chance to do it in public, and I wish they had done it in public. And I think they're making the wrong decision, avoiding doing it in public. I thought it was very repetitive. I thought that they asked literally the same questions over and over again, which didn't seem to me to be very productive. And then, as I said, toward the end, there were other questions that were totally off subject. So if they are going to fulfill their responsibilities to literally investigate the investigations, which is what they originally said was the scope of their work, I think they could have spent the day more productively.
James Matthews from Sky News. Can I ask, why was Ghislaine Maxwell invited to the daughter of Chelsea Clinton's wedding in 2010? She'd already been mentioned in a civil lawsuit by Virginia Giuffre before that. Jeffrey Epstein had already been convicted before that.
She came as the +1, the guest of someone who was invited.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
What message does it say that
I don't know when the video will be out. I don't know when the transcript will be out. We've asked that they be out as quickly as possible, and then you can see everything. Thank you.
You've been watching former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton speak after testifying before the House Oversight Committee about convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Let's go now to CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian, who's been following today's developments. So, Nicole, what did we learn today from Secretary Clinton?
Well, I know you were just getting ready to play the portion where the secretary did take a few questions from the media, including from CBS News. And I asked her if she still wants to testify publicly, because at the end of the day, that's what she and her husband, former President Bill Clinton, called for. However, Chairman Comer said that they had to do these depositions first, and then he would potentially consider doing a public hearing. But she basically said, no, this was it. Ideally, they wanted this to be a public hearing, but short of that, she feels that she has certainly done her part. And she characterized this proceeding, as you heard her there say, that this was very repetitive in her view, that she was asked over and over and over again about Jeffrey Epstein and kind of had to give the same answer over and over and over again, that she did not have any interactions with him. She did not meet with him. She did not go to his island. She's never been to his home, his offices. And she said that she made that statement a number of times. You also heard her there talk about some of the off-topic questions she got on issues like UFOs. But at the end of the day, she felt that she did her duty, did her part. That is something she alluded to in her opening statement earlier today, obviously, not only being a former Secretary of State and a former First Lady, but also a former senator as well, realizing the importance of legislative oversight, which is why she agreed to take part in this. She said she has full confidence in her husband going forward, of course, since he will be giving his deposition to the House Oversight Committee tomorrow.
All right, Nicole Killian, thank you very much.
lawmakers on Capitol Hill.
I'm gonna say this. Whew. For mercy. They really, I don't care if you're Republican, I don't care if you're Democrat, they really, really need to just put the names out there, do with this, and get it done. Get it done. Let these victims have peace. I was looking at some of the older victims, and some of them look like their lives are pretty messed up by it. And we can't say that nothing happened, things happen. But what I can say is that Donald Trump would have been, in people want to keep saying Donald Trump did all these things. We would have already known if Donald Trump did something illegal with any of those girls. But for the real perpetrators, there needs to be justice. Now, do you guys believe Hillary? Do you guys believe Hillary? You said makes plenty of sense to me. He has exposed the corruption in Washington, D.C. Left wing, right wing. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Drain the swamp. So I spent a lot of time going through these files and reading through them, and it's so much. I don't believe her either damage, not at all. Hillary's been a known liar, and I don't even know how she hasn't been called out a long time ago. Hillary's had to come out and apologize for so many things. Why should we believe her now? I don't believe her, and she comes across as very shady. Why did she need to bring up the UFOs? Whatever. I do not believe that she wanted that deposition to be public. I don't believe her at all. It's not political. Not everything is political. Eric, are you okay? How you doing, Matt Lee? Why don't the victims, would you say why don't the victims have the perpetrators arrested if it's true? It's not that easy, Sheep. You're talking about very wealthy, very powerful people. It's not that easy, and they were very young. Trump didn't have anything to apologize for, so I'm not sure why you're asking if Trump has apologized. I'm not sure. You know that Biden administration didn't release the files either. Biden administration didn't release the files. He failed to. And I believe that the reason they didn't release those files, now this is just alleged, is because they wanted you to think that Donald Trump did something wrong. Because if they could have proven that, they would have released the files. So instead, let people run with it. Let people run with this imagination. They've been putting accusations on Donald Trump since his first election. And unfortunately, that's just something that we have to deal with until he's out of office. I agree, she's the devil. I'm fine. Democrats didn't go after Trump. Okay. Let me try to find. They got Prince Andrew to be more powerful. Prince Andrew's not in the United States, though. They handle things differently over there. And Prince Andrew still has a trial. We don't know what's going to happen with Prince Andrew, to be honest. We don't know. He was arrested, okay. But we don't know what's going to happen. Hillary is smarter than you see. Whatever. Trump is king. Yeah. 2028. All right, you guys. So that's pretty much what I had for you guys. I love to know y'all opinion on things. That's what I was saying. If you were looking at my comments, Dopey, I was looking at your comments. I was looking at a lot of comments. And I probably did miss some of you guys' comments. I try my best to keep up with your comments, but I got to go through a lot because some of you on the left really try my patience sometimes, because I can show you something, I can let you hear it, and you still, and all of you, no matter what I say, not all of you, no matter what I say, you go, what about Donald Trump? Find something in those files about Donald Trump. Go on Gmail, do what I do, and read through all of these, put his name in and read through it. There's nothing incriminating about Donald Trump, nothing. Nobody's denying that he hasn't met Epstein. Nobody's denying that he hasn't been, we know, but as far as doing something wrong, no. Donald Trump would have already been exposed for that. And there's been nothing. With that being said, you guys, Lawrence, are we still friends? I love you guys. I'm praying for the country. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Epstein was a Democrat with Dem Elites and Friends Connect. Oh, okay. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. There's just a lot, you guys. I try to bring you guys the truth and let you guys go through it yourself. All right. I do my best to put these stories together so you guys can have the information out there, okay? MAGA conservatives, vote the midterms. We don't need any more crazies from the left. MAGAs, conservatives, go out and vote. Midterms are going to be really, really important. Our country's depending on you. We've got to stick together. With that being said, I love you guys. Be safe. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you, Dovey. See you guys soon.